The news from Thursday: Will Howard named the Ohio State quarterback, QB1, as predicted by Spencer Holbrook on Monday's show. Ryan Day said, Will Howard will start our first game against Akron. He's our starting quarterback. I think Chip Kelly, of course, has done a great job of rolling our quarterbacks from the first day of spring all the way to now. We're talking 27 of 28 practices. And when you take the aggregate of all the numbers, Will has graded out significantly ahead of the other guys. Our friend Parker Fleming at Stats War on X, very funny tweet yesterday. Breaking: veteran quarterback who signed a hefty NIL deal is named our starting quarterback. He was not speaking, of course, only of Will Howard. This is all of these quarterback competitions. We talked about Tyler Van Dyke at Wisconsin yesterday. Yes, the advantage was heavily tilted toward Will Howard in this competition, but Ohio State has plenty of money. If Will Howard had come in and been a complete dud, then I think Ohio State would have moved on and started Devin Brown, started somebody else. Devin Brown will be the backup. Remember, Devin Brown started the bowl game, got hurt pretty early. We never really got to see what he can do, but I don't know if it's going to be a situation where Devin Brown really gets a chance, because now they've got Julian Sayin. Now they've got Air Noland. Now they've got all these other people who could potentially be the starting quarterback. So that's the guy. Now, there are doubters about Will Howard. Eric in the chat is one of them. Will Howard will lose the starting job for good when he throws 3 picks against Nebraska and loses by 2 touchdowns. Now, that's game 8, I believe. So he'd be pretty deep into the season at that point. But I've seen this refrain a few times throughout the offseason. There was a comment in the chat yesterday, even said, Will Howard just isn't good enough to be Ohio State starting quarterback. And Will Howard's a pretty good starting quarterback, helped Kansas State win a Big 12 title a couple of years ago. And I see people saying, if he wasn't that good at Kansas State, why is he going to be good at Ohio State? Well, he has considerably more talent around him at Ohio State, and that does seem to matter, right? I go back to Jaden Daniels. Remember Jaden Daniels when he was a freshman at Arizona State? We're like, this guy's awesome. And then the next 2 years, we're like, what happened to Jaden Daniels? Well, let's see. When Jaden Daniels was a freshman, Brandon Ayuk caught 65 passes for 1,200 yards. And then Brandon Ayuk went to the NFL. Funny thing about that, Jaden Daniels became a worse quarterback when Brandon Ayuk wasn't there. And then Jaden Daniels went to LSU and became a much better quarterback when Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. were there. Crazy how that works. Name the best receiver or the best pass-catching target at Kansas State during Will Howard's tenure. There's Ben Sinnott. I'll help you there. There's Ben Sinnott, the tight end. He had Deuce Vaughn 2 years ago when they won the Big 12 championship. And Deuce Vaughn was gone after that year. So he's going to have Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Travion Henderson, and Quinshon Judkins are the backs. Like, it's a very different environment around Will Howard with Ohio State. This is going to be a very interesting thing because, as AJ Adams points out, he's trying to make this a thing. I'm for it. Saying Will Howard got beat out by AJ Jett. That would be Avery Johnson at Kansas State. Yes, he did. Kansas State put a lot of NIL resources into Avery Johnson, a guy from Kansas who is younger than Will Howard, who will be there for at least 2 more years. They made that choice. Same choice Oklahoma made with Jackson Arnold that allowed Dylan Gabriel to go to Oregon. And we'll find out. It will be very interesting. I am fascinated to see how people judge Chris Kleiman at Kansas State and Brent Venables at Oklahoma if we are watching Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard duke it out for the Big Ten title and possibly duke it out in the playoff. Like, are they going to feel like they made a mistake if they're not also in the playoff? It's going to be interesting. Chicken 1515. Also, he's got Chip Kelly. That is a big also. That's a huge also. Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, only having to worry about offensive coordinator things, not having to worry anymore about head coach things. That's kind of scary. That's kind of scary. And that's yet another reason why we keep pumping up Ohio State this offseason. And you got the people, well, they can't beat Michigan. No, they've lost 3 in a row against Michigan. You're right. But if you're paying any attention, there's a good chance they're substantially different this year. Nathan in the chat, giving up your A-level QB for another A-level QB just because the second one is younger is like the old dude divorcing his hot wife of 20 years for a barista at Starbucks. No, well, it depends. Is the barista at Starbucks also working on a startup that could be worth billions? That's the gamble here with Avery Johnson or with Jackson Arnold. The startup that the barista is working on may be worth billions, or it might not. We just don't know. And that's the issue right now. But I'm really intrigued to see how everybody gets judged for all of this, because Chris Kleiman has done no wrong at Kansas State. Brent Venables, he's at Oklahoma. The standards are very high. He's gotten criticism like that first year that they were just not good enough. Last year, they were much better. But both of them could be subject to some fairly intense criticism if Dillon Gabriel and Will Howard are just flat out awesome this year and their QBs don't live up to the hype. They're going to have to do it. There's a lot of pressure on Jackson Arnold and Avery Johnson, but there's also a ton of pressure on Dillon Gabriel and Will Howard. I mean, Will Howard is being handed the keys to a Ferrari. Maserati. Maserati Marv's gone. What are we calling Jeremiah? I think Jeremiah Smith is a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. And I'm sorry Kyle McCord took the Honda McCord stray. I feel very bad about that. I didn't do that, by the way. I didn't coin that term, but somebody did. Goat dog, they left him for a young thing. Well, that's right. But here's the thing with Will Howard. If we're going to continue this analogy, if we're going to torture this analogy, Will Howard is that, hot spouse of a long time who got dumped for what the person supposedly thought is an upgrade, who hit the gym super hard and is just rocking the bod, coming out, every head's turning, and they also came into money. Like they have inherited something, got a promotion at work, something, because they've also got a squad around them now that makes them pretty good. So that's Will Howard. And Will Howard competing against the ghost of Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson competing against the ghost of Will Howard. We'll find out what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.